Hello everyone and welcome back to the Warwick F1 show. 2 races in a row, we were promised a wet race. 2 races in a row, we didn't get them. But 2 races in a row, we didn't really need them to deliver a lot of entertainment on the Sunday. This is your Canadian Grand Prix review. I'm your host Daniel and I'm joined as always by my 2 co-hosts Lucy and Callum. And we are also joined by our guest Alex. Thank you very much for joining me for this episode. Guys, let's just get straight into it. Initial thoughts on the race. I'm going to jump right in and say that was a 9 out of 10 race for me, easily. There was a lot of battling that went on all throughout. 30 laps of Mercedes intra-team battling, which was so nerve-wracking but so tasty. Callum, what's your assessment? Rating out of 10, please?
Yeah, I was probably going to go for maybe a little bit lower, maybe for an 8 out of 10. I think it would have increased more if we did get that full race-length battle between Antonelli and Russell, but obviously that was cut short, unfortunately, by the problem that Russell had with his car. We still did have a lot of battling as well. Lots of penalties as well. I think we were talking about it before the start of the podcast, how we saw loads of exclamation marks down the side of the timing tower on our screen. Lots of mistakes going on as well. If it's for the race, maybe 8 out of 10. If it's for the entire weekend, maybe... To be fair, this unlike Miami, the sprint did actually live up to similar expectations because we actually got a very good battle between Antonelli and Russell in that as well. I will say my thoughts later on about how I thought that battle went out, especially for Antonelli. But I thought it was a really entertaining race. I'll go with 8 out of 10.
Yeah, we're going to deep dive into that battle a little bit later on. Alex, your rating, please?
Yeah, I'll probably do the same with 8 out of 10 because, of course, the battle between Antonelli and Russell was cut short, and I believe that it would have been more fun if other teams had gotten involved. Perhaps if McLaren hadn't had their Ferrari strategy blunder, they could have been in contention and they could have given a much bigger push for the lead, and it would have been interesting to see them competing with the 2 Mercedes. And with the sprint, yeah, we'll speak about this later. But Antonelli, of course, he sort of became like Mad Max, 2018 Max.
There were shades of that. I do know what you mean.
Yeah,
Lucy?
yeah.
I think that... Are we allowed to do half marks? Can I say 8.5?
We'll allow half.
I'd give it 8.5 because I agree that the Mercedes battle being cut short was a bit sad. But I think that... Actually, I think if instead of they did 2 VSCs, I think if one of those had been a full safety car... in some ways what made the middle bit of the race boring was that everyone was sort of at least 20 seconds apart from each other. And so if we'd had them all bunched up a little bit more. I think you mentioned that we didn't need a wet race. I'm going to go out on a limb here and say that it was more interesting because it wasn't a wet race, particularly at the start, because nobody knew whether it was going to be a wet race or not. It was still drying because it had been wet before F2 and F1 Academy, but so they'd had some cars on the track, but it was still not 100% dry, and we wouldn't have got some of those interesting moments if it had been just chucking it down with rain. It would have been a different sort of race. So I'm going to say 8.5. My favourite race probably of the season so far. I did quite enjoy Miami as well, but this has probably been my favourite.
I agree. I think it was mine too, and our podium would have probably looked very different if it was a straight wet race or if it was a straight dry race as well, because there was a certain team that made a very interesting
I prefer it as a wet race because then McLaren would have made the right strategy call at the start, and so they would have actually done well. I mean, PSG, obviously Norris may have, as he did in the actual race, DNF out of it. But I think I would agree with you, Lucy, that I think it's better than Miami because we actually did get that battle for the lead, at least for a little bit, and also for the sprint. And also because it wasn't a wet race, it meant that we did actually get to see the true pace of the cars and actual competing between the performance, because we really had, I suppose, if it wasn't for the McLarens doing poorly, we would have had that battle for the lead, presumably between Mercedes and McLaren, but then more as well, we had another battle going on for third, which is really between the Ferrari and the Red Bulls as well. So kind of a two different sequence battles going on for those different positions for the podium places and the win. So it was definitely very entertaining.
And we also had Ferrari versus Red Bull, of course, in Hadjar versus Leclerc, which we will get into later as well. Those 2 drivers had very interesting races. But firstly, we'll get into the brunt of this episode, which is, of course, the Mercedes battle that had us on the edge of our seats lap after lap after lap. I think it was sensational, honestly. I don't think we've seen such good intra-team battling since... Austria last year springs to mind, but probably way before that as well. Obviously, the McLarens were going toe-to-toe in that race. And the fact that both drivers made so many mistakes was so telling in how much they were pushing each other. And it was very candid racing, I feel like. It wasn't disguised. They weren't holding back. And that's exactly what we want to see in Formula One, right? Alex, your thoughts on the Mercedes battle, what we saw from them, and the performance of each driver in that battle?
I feel like it's really surprising this year to see how like Kimi has matured from this like rookie who's like, you know, making mistakes, not really that fast, is sort of getting used to all the tracks, to this year becoming like an absolute force for the championship. And now he's like 43 points clear. So he's just showing how, like, you know, the experience of George Russell is like not enough to stop this like wonder kid. It sort of reminds me of like Lewis Hamilton in 2008. Could it perhaps be a second season world championship for him?
I do apologise because I'm going to disagree with you on this, especially for the sprint. I thought that the racing quality of Antonelli was absolutely shocking. I think seeing him on the sprint, purely on the sprint, I think the Sunday he did improve a lot, but the sprint, I think Antonelli easily had the pace to get ahead of Russell, but it was because of his impatience and his lack of experience that he was going for opportunities that weren't really there, whereas I'm sure if he waited just another half lap or another lap, the opportunity would have been much, much better against Russell. And that's why we had these things like he was constantly locking up his tyres, and he was and he pretty much, did he finish third in the sprint? Am I
Yeah.
So he would have actually finished at least second even if he didn't overtake Russell, because of his lack of experience and the amount of mistakes he was making in that battle. He didn't finish in second. He finished in third behind a McLaren. I don't think that Norris, as good as their pace was, I don't think that they could have stood up against both Mercedes if Antonelli was just a bit more calm. And so in that battle. And so I think personally I was actually quite, I want to say surprised, but actually I think it's maybe what we've been expecting to come, because even though Antonelli's had some really good races so far, we've still put Russell in contention for the lead in our predictions. Now, you might say that's because we're bad at predicting, but also you might say that it's because Russell is the more experienced driver. And that's what I thought I saw in the sprint, was it the lack of experience showing. Even on the team radio, you could hear that he was clearly stressed about what was going on. And yes, I do think that they should have maybe looked into that incident in the sprint where Russell, I think, did cut him off when going into turn one. I don't think that was right. I was surprised they didn't investigate that at least, or at least make a note of it, the stewards. But so yeah, I wasn't very happy with the approach Antonelli was taking for his racing. I think on the Sunday it did improve, and we did have a bit more of like a bit more high quality racing between them. But I think it kind of disappointed me a little bit, because Antonelli, he clearly had the pace to challenge Russell and even overtake him, but he was just throwing it away because of these mistakes that he was making, which I suppose does show that he is a 19-year-old racing driver in his second season.
Yeah, potentially a bit of immaturity creeping in for Antonelli there. You're right in that he did sound very stressed on the radio. I mean, he always sounds stressed on the radio. He could be trundling just down the pit lane at the pit lane speed limit, and he'll be shouting something at Bono, sounding very stressed. But definitely in those moments, it did kind of shine through. Just to excuse one of the incidents when he dove down the inside of Russell and went flying off across the grass. I think in that moment he did hit a bump on the track, which kind of limited his braking potential and meant he went quite long. But there were other moments in which he was sending ridiculous moves around the outside that were never going to come off right. On Norris as well, there was one, which was probably the most egregious and desperate that he attempted. Lucy, your thoughts on Antonelli's driving standards this weekend?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's interesting because Alex said that the racing felt candid. And I think when we've been talking about these regulations as a whole, I realise I will get to Antonelli specifically, but we've been talking, I promise I'm not just going to waffle for the next 20 minutes about the new regulations again. But when we've been talking about them, some of the criticisms has been that the racing doesn't feel authentic or it feels manufactured. And I think Russell versus Antonelli, that felt authentic. It felt kind of true. It was messy, especially from Antonelli's part in quite a few instances, but it didn't feel artificial. And so it was nice to watch for that very reason. I think, though, it's interesting because comparing Saturday to Sunday, it felt like on Saturday, Antonelli was just racing to beat Russell. He wasn't really racing to try and win the race. He was just racing to try and beat George. this is a weird analogy, but it will make sense. He was just racing to try and beat George, where it felt that on Sunday when they were racing, they were both racing to try and win, to try and finish P1, which is why the moves were less erratic, because they were racing to get the best result rather than just racing to beat each other.
And surely that's because Mercedes had a very firm word with both of the drivers about their racing.
The team radios from Saturday were hilarious.
They were.
I mean, I'm not surprised. Like, Antonelli nearly took both of them out when he locked up his tyres, I think, and almost went into the back of Russell. And you could have easily seen a double DNF and then easy points lost from Mercedes. So it does make sense, I feel. But I think for Antonelli, it does kind of make sense a little bit, because for the past few races he has largely gone unchallenged. You know, the other cars like McLaren, maybe they haven't had upgrades that have brought them closer to the Mercedes, and same with Ferrari and Red Bull. And George Russell hasn't really been very close to him either, so he's perhaps gotten a bit complacent with how that is, even if he doesn't mean to. I'm sure he knows that there's a long season to go and he's still young and everything like this, but even subconsciously he may just think maybe this is slightly, I don't know, easy or something. Not that that's the right word, but I think maybe it shocked him a little bit when Russell was actually competing against him, and when he realised he actually did have a fight on his hand, and perhaps that's why he was going for these ridiculous moves, because he was kind of on edge in a way.
Yeah, it's interesting that even, you've mentioned when Antonelli's been winning, but even in Australia, Antonelli and Russell haven't really actually kind of been fighting each other on track that much. They've been competing for the championship because they're the two people in the best car and the P1 and 2 in the championship standings. But they've not actually been wheel-to-wheel racing in every race. It feels in some ways, I mean, I guess this could be a turning point, but it's felt a lot more like it will be the sort of championship battle where it's not so much that they're fighting wheel-to-wheel all the time, but it's more over the course of a season, their strong moments and their weak moments will even out, so they'll be quite close on points. So yes, it's probably, there's kind of their first time properly fighting each other as teammates, because last year, kind of Antonelli couldn't really challenge Russell most of the time. Because it was his first F1 season.
Yeah. I mean, we need to remember that it is his second season only. I mean, it was incredibly impressive of Oscar Piastri last year to be able to bring the fight to Norris in his third season, and we're seeing such competitiveness from Antonelli in only his second. There was a point that you brought up about Antonelli and Russell. I do agree in that he's gone largely unchallenged so far this season, Antonelli. I think for him, his wheel-to-wheel racing has been criticised in the past. We've seen that before by the media, by us probably at some point. Rightfully so, I might add. And it is a case of just knowing your opposition, because we need to remember that many of the drivers in Formula 1 have raced each other for years and years and years. And yet Antonelli has come in. He's never raced against George Russell before last season. He's never raced against pretty much any of the other drivers because he was kind of streamlined into Formula 1 so quickly. So it is a great unknown for him. And so the fact that he gets flustered every now and then is unsurprising. And I think he can be given a little bit of forgiveness for that, given that he was catapulted into the senior team. So I'm willing to offer him a little bit of grace on that point. But it did get very leery at points. Callum, you mentioned when he locked up. That was the hairiest point of the Grand Prix, I think. Yeah. And there was also a moment when they were side by side through the chicane as well. Neither of them looked like they were going to give up. That was so close. Alex, I want to ask you, do you think it was right that Mercedes didn't intervene sooner and try to kind of call off this battle in a way? Obviously for us it was amazing that we got this battle and it was incredibly entertaining. But from Mercedes' point of view, do you think they should have done more to intervene?
Yeah, I feel like, it depends on whether they want like a team championship or the individual championship, because of course McLaren won the Constructors' Championship in like race 17, whereas for the Drivers' Championship it had to come down to the final race where Oscar was leading the entire season, bottled the championship, and then Max almost made Lando bottle it as well. So what happened was this season we have both the drivers and the constructors being like, of course Antonelli is a massive leader in the Drivers' Championship, but if George keeps crashing out, that means the Constructors' Championship wouldn't be so close. Like we take 2024 where Max won the Drivers' Championship quite comfortably, whereas the Constructors' Championship, because Perez was like mid, they
That's
didn't
being
win.
generous calling him mid, to be honest.
Yeah.
But yeah, sorry, go on.
Yeah, but I can't use profanity in the thing.
Fair enough.
Yeah, Paris was, let's say, bad, awful in 2024. 2021, 23, fine. But yeah, it might be the same case where, like, if like Mercedes don't, get their act together, they could lose the Constructors' Championship because, like, let's say if Lando and Oscar or like Charles overtake George in the standings because George keeps crashing out because of Kimi's dangerous driving, then that could be fatal for the Constructors' Championship. But I think, like, if that happens over and over and over again, there will be something. And I do think that George, like, it will eventually lock in and finish P2 in the championship because I feel like, the Ferraris and McLarens will sort of just exchange points with each other. Some weekends for Ferraris will be good, and other weekends the McLarens will be good. So it's mainly a fight for P2 in the Constructors. And then Red Bull is just Max, so Red Bull, yeah, they're not fighting in the Constructors because of second driver curse.
No, Hadjar's doing all right. I will not. I think after this weekend, you can't be like Hadjar's trash.
He's better than that.
What is he? How many penalties does he get? Like 40 seconds worth or something?
He finished P5. He did what Red Bull
That's
need
true,
him
actually.
to do, which is back.
Yeah,
back
Hadjar's
up.
been quite good so far this season.
And he was 300ths off Max in qualifying, which is the biggest thing for me. That's basically nothing.
No,
which
I
is
think that's
huge
it.
improvement.
But my actual thing was going to come about about Mercedes, and is that I think that Mercedes have got themselves into a position where, at least for the next few races, they kind of can't regulate their drivers racing too much because they've said that they won't. Like, they've come out and criticised the concept of, like, papaya rules from last year. And, like, even Toto Wolff did an interview where he was like, we're not going to say that Kimi and George can't fight each other.
We eat the fruit, but we don't make rules about the fruit. That was the quote he said.
That
or
was the
something.
quote he used.
I don't know. He was joking about it.
Yeah. But so in some ways, Mercedes can't do anything about it. And I don't think it will, at least imminently. I think what this weekend has shown is that this weekend, in terms of the slight messiness, to put it nicely, of their kind of inter-Mercedes battle and them having a mechanical DNF and everyone thinking coming in, McLaren brought more upgrades, were they going to be really close? And yet Mercedes still looked comfortably the best. And that was admittedly because of some interesting choices on the part of Mercedes' favourite customer team. But they looked still comfortably the best, to the point where I think right now they don't have to worry about the constructors too much. They can let George and Kimi crash and not crash. Well, they probably will end up doing that as well. But they can let them race and not worry too much about them losing points in the constructors, because they're in a position now where that's kind of a concern they don't have to have.
I think for me it would be like, if you're gonna end up in a position when you're prioritizing a driver, then you immediately ask the question, how are you going to regulate that? There's no way you're going to not prioritize Russell, because that's the driver that you've put so much time and money and effort into over the last few years. He's for quite a while since Hamilton left, even before Hamilton left, he was very clearly seen as, I suppose, the successor that Mercedes were looking to put their effort towards. But then, are you now really going to limit Antonelli? Because clearly he's been, I'd say, the dominant driver so far this season. So if you're kind of regulating and stopping him from performing and fighting Russell, then that almost feels a bit too artificial. I think compared to what obviously Mercedes used to do when we had the pairing of Hamilton and Bottas, whenever you have that kind of pairing where there's a clear first and second driver, it's usually because of the performance and the actual ability difference between the two drivers. It's not necessarily something that sets anything that the team sets up for themselves. Like, I think Bottas, the reason he was clearly a second driver is because, as good as he was in terms of his pace and his experience as an F1 driver, he was never really going to ever challenge Hamilton on a championship basis, on like a very long-term basis over the course of an entire season. And I think with these two Mercedes drivers, you just can't do that. So if you don't do that, then you have to implement something like papaya rules, which we all know how that went last season. So that's a different argument altogether. But I agree with Lucy. I don't think there's really any reason to do that now. And as you said, this is the first time with them battling. With them battling more, they'll learn more about each other and what they can and can't do. And so you'd think that these types of incidents should hopefully calm down over the season. Famous last words, but hopefully.
No, I'm really obviously expecting a hard-fought, many overtakes taking place battle between the Mercedes throughout the entirety of Monaco. They will definitely fight with each other the whole race.
Let's honestly hope so. I don't know. I feel like teammates sometimes have a way of coming together, even though they've been teammates. I don't know. I'm thinking of like
a previous
Baku
Mercedes,
2018.
I was going to say maybe a previous Mercedes pairing that we are.
Oh,
down.
so one of
Silver
those
Arrows,
two. Yeah,
2014 to
Think of
2016.
Baku 2018 and Spain 2016, right? They'd been teammates for so long, and yet those were still incredibly high-profile misunderstandings that they had on the track. So I think, even if they don't come together this year, which they will, there's still a high probability that going into the future, I'm not entirely sure that it's off the cards.
I feel like it might actually be a Rosberg-Hamilton case again, where technically, I think Rosberg entered F1 first, and then Hamilton entered a few years later, but Rosberg managed to win one world championship. So what if it's Antonelli domination, and then Russell wins one sole world championship and retires because he's tired of it?
I don't see that happening because I think that there are kind of many different things, and I think F1 is just different as well to how it was in 2016 and 2014 and that kind of start of the turbo hybrid era. I think that's what it's called. I've forgotten all of my wheel knowledge. But I think it is different. And I think ultimately it will come down. I don't think it will be like that because ultimately, Rosberg was in F1 first and then Hamilton joined later. But by that time when they were both at Mercedes, they sort of had they were almost kind of at equal stages in their careers. Hamilton had one world championship, but functionally him and Rosberg were going for kind of the Mercedes championships on an even footing in terms of their place in the team. Whereas this is sort of kind of Russell's moment. He's been at Mercedes for a while, and it's kind of been thought of basically kind of ever since he's been at Mercedes, and especially once Hamilton announced he was going to Ferrari, that if Mercedes nailed the 26 regulations, that was going to be Russell's time to shine. It was kind of never predicted that this was going to be Antonelli's year. It was always kind of supposed to be Russell's in a way that the previous eras of Mercedes, nobody ever went in saying, oh, this is going to be Rosberg's era, guys, and then Hamilton showed up.
Do you think he feels like that? Do you think he feels a sense of entitlement to this championship he feels offended that Antonelli
I don't think he feels offended. I think if you've kind of seen what he's been talking about, I think he feels discouraged, not in kind of from an entitlement, this is supposed to be my title, why are you coming for me, you small child way. But in the sense that it's kind of this is kind of almost the moment his whole career has been building towards, and through his own lack of performances, through Kimi's good performances, through engine reliability this weekend, he's not been able to fulfill that, at least right now. And so I think he said he did an Instagram post where he was it feels like the gods don't want me to be in this championship
he said
fight.
It after the race.
And it's kind of understandable why he feels like that, because this is supposed to be his moment. On paper, everything is set up for this to be Russell's championship, and yet that's not happened.
I certainly don't think he's going to get a better opportunity like this in his entire career. This is a once in a career opportunity where you've got the perfect car, which at the moment seems pretty much untouchable. Okay, yes, McLaren you'd expect to maybe get in on that battle a bit later on, but they've got a huge advantage, and he's up against, as a teammate, someone who is younger than us. So therefore it would pretty much seem like this was a chance, and yes, maybe even if it wasn't an entitlement, it was just a kind of disappointment compared to how he expected things to go.
But we are speaking as if Antonelli was beating Russell for the whole weekend, which he was not, because Russell was leading when he had his very unfortunate.
Oh yeah,
day.
Russell would have. I think Russell would have won if he didn't retire. I think so. Yeah.
I think so as well.
Okay. I think he made more mistakes though, wouldn't you say, over the course of the race?
Russell.
Yeah, I felt like Antonelli was faster.
Yeah, but I think then the fact that he made more mistakes over the course of that race so far, and yet he was still kind of there with Antonelli, probably shows that on balance he probably would have as you just kind of settled into it?
I mean, to me, it all depends on who's ahead when we get to the pit stop stage, right? Because that's when you get preferential strategy. But then again, if you box the first car first, is that preferential? Because it was so hard getting tyre temperature in Canada, maybe the overcut would have been preferable. And then the driver in second would have been ahead anyway.
Which we didn't get to see because everyone was 40 seconds apart.
It would have been so exciting to see who would have come out on top in that battle.
I know that it probably broke your heart, Callum, but it was so funny to watch the Mercedes fight with like the McLarens in the background because they'd just been lapped.
Yeah.
McLaren's being lapped is a scene which hasn't happened since like Bahrain 2023. It's embarrassing.
Okay, no, but right. Let's all calm down for a minute. Okay, I don't know if this was on the schedule to talk about, but I don't think like the McLarens made as much of an error as people are putting it out to be. Okay, because it's not like they were the only, because they were not the only team that started on the Inters. They had Sainz as well. I remember was one of the drivers that were on the Inters. And to be fair, I think obviously we yet to talk about the mistake that Piastri made, which was just crashing into the side of Albon. Maybe if Norris actually finished the race, he would have actually been able to get up to near the Ferraris and the Red Bulls. Who knows? But yes.
We've wildly diverged.
we have.
I was going to ask about Russell and the 43 points and the rest of the championship, but let's actually move on to McLaren because we do need to talk about this.
I've distracted us from Daniel's schedule in favour of rage baiting.
Worth it, honestly. Definitely a worthy reason. McLaren, I don't think it was unforgivable. I mean, in some of the cases, the drivers themselves pushed for that decision. I know Sainz and Norris did in particular. I'm not sure Piastri was...
Piastri really didn't want to do it.
No, especially on the formation laps.
Piastri was dragged kicking and screaming onto the intermediate tyres, basically.
He was, yeah, but at that point...
Why can McLaren have, like, split the strategies? I mean, Piastri wouldn't have had these, like, problems, like, you know, with Albon fighting the midfield. He would have actually gotten to the front and perhaps challenged the Red Bulls and the Ferraris.
Well, you don't know that. Maybe Albon was going to end up in P3.
Oh, right, sorry. Yeah, I completely forgot about that,
Excuse me.
No.
The race wasn't that crazy. Yeah, I mean, it's true. A front wing costs like £100,000 in Formula One these days, so McLaren cost themselves at least that when Piastri went into the side of Albon, which was a moment of maybe...
So however much, like 3 sets of tyres cost that you use for like 2 laps.
Yeah, that too. Those Inters are probably not cheap. Just probably a momentary lapse for Piastri, which I think is understandable. But at the end of the day, I kind of understand why McLaren didn't listen to him on the formation laps. Because at that point, it felt like they've made their bed and they just have to lay in it. Because if you peel in at the end of the formation laps, into the pits, I mean, you're just guaranteeing yourself a pit lane start on the same tyres as everyone else. But at least for Norris, particularly, he was able to get into the lead, which meant he could take advantage of the field spread when he boxed. So he wasn't dead last when he came out of the pits. If he'd started from the pit lane, he would have just started dead last. So I think for me, it made sense that they didn't take them in at the end of the formation laps. But it was certainly the wrong decision to start them on that tyres initially when they started the formation lap. That's
absolutely. That was the wrong decision. But I think it's something. It's the weather. It might just be a judgment call that doesn't work out. It's a risk that you take when there's unknown conditions, and I don't know, maybe they weren't getting the same weather radar that other teams were.
I agree, and that makes sense. I think for me, the reason why it seemed like such a bad call was kind of nothing to do in many ways with the call itself, but the fact that they, throughout the sprint, admittedly that was because Antonelli forgot what chicane was.
Yeah.
But they were challenging the Mercedes, Norris in particular. He got P2. He was ahead of Antonelli. And so there was kind of no reason, it felt, going into the race that they wouldn't be able to do that. This is not kind of sort of the McLaren's up against sort of Verstappen in 2023 when they might have thought we've got to go something really rogue if we want to try and beat him here. They probably could have challenged the Mercedes, especially with them fighting again. There's kind of no reason why they couldn't have taken advantage of that at least once or wouldn't have wanted to be there. So it felt like a scenario where, admittedly, we don't know their information, but if they went for it because they wanted to make a bold strategy call to try and offset the Mercs, they didn't really need to do that.
Oh, so you think they should have just matched whatever Mercedes was doing so they were at least in the same position as them?
I don't think that... I mean, maybe, but I think that kind of if their reasoning was, well, we may as well not do what the Mercedes were doing, that would be stupid.
I agree. I think the sprint was actually really exciting for McLaren's prospects. Obviously, they brought that upgrade package, as did Mercedes, but McLaren seemed to be working really well, and Norris was able to stick with Russell near the end of the sprint and stay ahead of Antonelli, which I think was really impressive. And you're right, I would have loved to see their pace during the race. Norris had a gearbox issue, I think, in case anyone doesn't know why he retired. Same as George Russell, he also had the gearbox issue. HPP maybe have a small issue on their hands that they need to fix. Ferrari have still been reliable as ever, which is quite
weird statement.
it is, which is impressive to say the least.
Yeah, like Haas and Cadillac haven't really had, like Cadillac's reliability problems have been from there being on 5 races, not from their engine being bad.
Yeah, Cadillac have just had parts of their car imploding the whole season, basically mirrors Perez's suspension randomly exploding.
Famously, you don't need a suspension in Formula 1.
I think you do when you've got like half the race remaining, maybe. Just kind of. Yeah, especially when you've got the Wall of Champions facing you. You know, you kind of want to turn away from that, maybe.
No, you want to hit the Wall of Champions because then it will give you a championship.
Right.
All good drivers hit the Wall of Champions.
Perez WDC for 2027 confirmed. Cadillac leaps amount.
George Russell's championship is doomed not because of the fact that he DNF'd, but because of the fact he DNF'd not in the Wall of Champions. He should have felt his gearbox go and go, okay, right, I need to go crash into that.
Yeah, I need to slow down for the hairpin, then accelerate.
Didn't Colapinto like touch the Wall of Champions like very, very briefly?
Yeah.
Oh, did
and that
he?
was a championship-winning driver in Alpine from Colapinto.
It was. Let's get on to that shortly. Firstly, I want to pick a bit of beef with Piastri because he actually ruined Hülkenberg's P11 finishing trend, where every time that Hülkenberg had finished a race before this one, he was P11. And he also qualifies P11 all the time. Like, I don't know the stats for that one.
It's really giving, like, when Behrman last year was just P11.
It was
like 5 races
Wait, do you mean
was
this
Behrman.
season?
Yeah.
Oh, okay, right. I was going to say not in his entire career. I was going to say.
That's why he's never got any podiums.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Because he definitely hasn't got a podium. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
There's an 11th, and 12th for the races he has finished.
Exactly. And he's DNF'd and DNS'd one each as well.
Yeah.
All the Stats F1 people are now going after Piastri, as it's been told, for him ruining the Stats of Hülkenberg.
Well, I mean, couldn't you have just got...
Just angry Williams fans and angry Hülkenberg fans and angry Stats F1 fans.
Couldn't he have just got one more penalty and then, like, stuck behind Hülkenberg?
What if he just DNF'd as well when he crashed into Albon? He could have done that. That would have solved the problem.
That would have been so helpful.
Yeah.
I mean, it wouldn't have actually changed anything, to be fair.
Well, it would have changed Hülkenberg's DNF.
Well, yeah, okay, sorry, not for Piastri, though, yeah.
Okay, we've talked about Mercedes, we've talked about McLaren. Let's go to the rest of the podium first, because it was a Ferrari best finish for Hamilton of second place. He seemed quite, I don't know, we use this word a lot with Hamilton, rejuvenated.
He just seemed to be having a great time.
He did. He said after the race that he has the best job in the world, which I thought was quite wholesome and good to hear from him.
Yeah, as soon as Hamilton got a podium, he's happy because, of course, last season was a pain for him.
I also love that he did that after I spent the entire weekend talking about how utterly trash Ferrari are at Canada.
Yeah, no, you did. I mean, Leclerc was pretty trash, to be fair, so maybe it's just him.
Yeah, it's just him. He forgot he wasn't a Mercedes driver. He saw only one other Mercedes on the track and went, oh, I'm a Mercedes driver.
That was definitely, and he saw Verstappen ahead of him, and he was like, flashback to Mercedes days, I'm definitely
And
a
that
Mercedes.
transferred to his engine being so good and his car performing so well.
Yeah, and his straight line speed being great and everything.
Forget the pink Mercedes from Racing Point. This is the red Mercedes.
Yeah. There were a couple of interesting things that he said over the weekend. He used a different setup going into the weekend that he's never used before. There was a big deal made out of him not using the simulator, which I thought was quite weird because he doesn't use it normally anyway. It's just kind of his thing.
I feel like it's a Max thing.
That's definitely a Max thing to use the sim, yeah. And he also said he's finally got the engineering team that he's been working towards, which is interesting. Kind of putting together the dream team that he didn't have last year, I guess, and is kind of
they seem to be quite against him on the radio, but like, I think that's just a Ferrari thing. So.
Yeah, it is just. Yeah.
And the thing is, Charles was still ahead in the championship, so.
Yeah, but like, did you see Charles' weekend?
Let's talk about Charles' weekend because he called it his worst weekend of his career. Do you agree?
I mean,
guys?
definitely like top 10 worst weekends of his career.
Yeah, fair.
There wasn't anything to be excited about.
Top 10, bottom 10.
Yeah,
bottom 10 weekends. Sorry. of his career. He finished 34 seconds off Hamilton. He was having trouble braking all weekend, which is something that Hamilton had in the Ferrari last year and Leclerc seemed immune to, and now it's swapped around. It's incredibly bizarre. So yeah, I mean, in terms of pace, quite probably the worst weekend.
I mean, in terms
he's
of
had.
position, nowhere near the worst weekend. But in terms of like finishing 34 seconds of Hamilton in a normal race, you would think that maybe Leclerc's finished like P11 or something like that. He still finished P4 because
Yeah, right. But
the gaps between the top teams, as in the big four, and the rest of the field, the entire field is like 2 laps behind Mercedes,
Yeah,
McLaren,
you've got to love
Ferrari,
everyone
etc.
below Charles Leclerc getting lapped at least once.
No, I think that's. I was quite surprised at that as well because hearing that he called it his worst weekend of his career and then checking the race results and found that he actually did finish P4. But I think it's because probably more because of the fact that Hamilton did so well for his weekend. Like he had a really great weekend and probably one of the most comfortable performances ever had in a Ferrari. And I suppose up until now Leclerc's been established as the one who has the experience in the Ferrari and he knows how to get the most out of it, and Hamilton's still trying to adapt to the car, but this weekend it almost seemed reversed in a way. So I think that's probably was inflated the fact as to why, or exaggerated a bit more to how bad his weekend was perhaps, because maybe more was there potentially from what Hamilton's performance would suggest.
I mean, Canada's never been one of Leclerc's strong circuits.
And it is for Hamilton, right?
It is. It's like Hamilton. Was that his first race? When was that?
It was
Canada?
2007. Yeah.
So it's kind of, if there was a weekend for there to be a big disparity between teammates this weekend, Silverstone, I wouldn't be surprised if it's kind of just based on performance. There's another fairly big gap in terms of how much they like the circuits.
Maybe. I think they both like that one.
Yeah, but like I'm not surprised it's this one that we're seeing like big
Yeah, for sure.
differentials in Hamilton's favour.
I think Leclerc will buy back in Monaco, though.
Yeah,
That's his special
Leclerc
circuit.
gains like 0.3 of power by being in Monaco.
Yeah, exactly. He uncaps the engine deployment and just goes flat out all the time. And it's not necessarily a specialist circuit of Hamilton's in the past. It's not been too strong there, so we'll definitely have to see.
Like the record's still with Ayrton Senna, I swear,
Yeah.
for Monaco.
Is it?
So,
Yeah,
so
it's
neither
still-
Hamilton nor Verstappen have beaten it.
Yeah. It's still Senna and then it's Hill and then you get to Verstappen and Hamilton.
Graham Hill?
Yeah.
The master of Monaco.
The master of Monaco.
Even though Senna holds the record.
Yeah.
Wow, still.
Yeah.
Good for him.
You've got enough consistent naming convention.
It really is. End off our podium chat with Max Verstappen, who got his first podium of his career, Ford's first podium in Formula One since 2003, I think. Don't ask me the driver, team, or race, but I think that's correct. It was a weird one for Max because he was complaining earlier in the weekend about his feet flying off the pedals and just being unable to drive the car, which is typical for Max and his Red Bull. But Callum, it was a great turnaround, which we've seen from Red Bull in the past, but not too often these days, like late 24, 25 especially. They were able, especially when it was a sprint weekend, they'd do terribly in the sprint and then just turn up for the race. I mean, the sprint, I think, was one of Max's most...
Anonymous?
Anonymous, that's the word. Thank you. I was thinking ominous in my head. I was like, Max Verstappen was not ominous. He is normally. He is normally ominous, but his sprint was anonymous. Callum. So, what did you make of the turnaround that they were able to make? And was it just flattered by the fact that Russell and 2 McLarens weren't in the picture?
That's what I was going to say. I think if the McLaren's got the right strategy call and Russell's still in there, then you could easily say that Verstappen was probably down in fifth. I suppose you could still say that for Hamilton as well. So I think the performance that he had and the podium that he had and how people have reacted to his performances is definitely slightly because there. But then to be fair, he was still able to keep up with the Ferraris, which at the moment or the leading Ferrari, I should say, of Hamilton, and so. And I think, unfortunately, that's kind of where Red Bull are at the moment. They're not anywhere near challenging the McLarens or the Mercedes, so that's kind of the best they can hope for at the moment. So that is, I suppose, their definition of a pretty solid weekend. Especially as you mentioned, the recovery that they had as well, it probably made it better than expected. So I wasn't really too focused on it as like an amazing performance. It's like, yeah, that's where they should be, perhaps, at this moment in time.
Yeah, I mean, I think Max should be at the front always, to be honest, or at least on the podium, because that's what his talent merits, and that's where he's most entertaining in my book. So it was good to see him back on the podium, and he looked like he was enjoying himself even after the comments that he made about retiring from Formula One. Again, coming into the weekend.
It was really funny because like before the weekend started, he was like, "I'm not retiring," and then immediately after sprint qualifying, he was like, "I kind of hate this. I can't do this anymore."
He keeps like flip flopping his mind, just depending on the performance of the Red
What was
Bull.
the quote? He said, "Mentally not doable." I think,
Yeah.
which is a very strong statement to be making. I think.
I think unfortunately, like he's had so many interviews now this season about the new regulations and his future in Formula One that I've just become like numb to it, because they're just like, yeah, he's always going to say something until we actually get a confirmed headline. I don't really like. I just don't look for it at all.
To be honest,
I
think even if we get one of those like official banners on like the F1 website that's like Verstappen is retiring, I'll still probably think, but we'll probably say next week that he's
he'll probably change his mind.
I think he said that the minimum requirement for him to stay is a 60-40 split in engine and battery for next season.
So is he trying to like emotionally manipulate?
That's exactly what I was about to say.
FIA?
That's the tactic. Is he trying to?
Were they not going to put it back to that anyway next season?
Their plan is, but there's like it's been proposed as a suggestion.
Okay.
But not all the teams are in favour of it. Like it's no, Mercedes are in favour of it.
I'm just thinking of like the list of like benefits that teams have come up with for the 60-40 split, and then the bottom it's like Verstappen will stay in the sport or something.
But then there's like at least one team who's Audi and like, yeah, but we get a lot of P11s, and so if he's not there, then we can get those all into points finish.
Yeah, if both Red Bulls become a second Red Bull.
It's actually just like
Yes.
it's actually just that it's not actually all the teams. Maybe new conspiracy idea. All the teams are in favour. It's actually just Liam Lawson and Arvid Lindblad are changing all their replies to the emails so that they can get promoted to Red Bull in Verstappen's absence.
Does Lawson even want to go back to Red Bull? Like, I don't know.
They're just traumatized.
He's too traumatized.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
don't know
the
what it's
last
called,
Ford podium was actually a win at the 2003 Brazilian Grand Prix by Giancarlo Fisichella racing for Jordan.
Oh my gosh! Yes, it was in Jordan, and they gave the trophy to Kimi Raikkonen instead. And then a week later, they went, "Oh, sorry, we got it wrong. It's actually Fisichella's."
Yeah.
So then at the next race, Kimi Raikkonen had to they did an unofficial trophy presentation where he just gave it back to Fisichella.
I remember it like it was yesterday.
Was it?
No, I don't remember it.
Oh, okay.
I wasn't born.
I also wasn't born. I was -3 years old.
Oh, I thought you said a bit like it was yesterday.
Oh, no.
You remember it. You remember it like it was yesterday. Got it. Okay. Sure.
No, wrong Kimi.
Like we all do. You're wrong, Kimmy. Good one. Yeah.
Yeah.
Uh-huh. He likes to. Both of them say "bois" quite a lot. Have you noticed?
Yeah.
Wow.
I wonder, is Kimi Antonelli doing that intentionally? Like,
I
is
think
it
he
part
might
of a
be.
long-running bit?
I don't know.
Ever
it
since
might
they announced Kimi Raikkonen on the podium, he's just trying to form
Kimi
into that
Antonelli
personality.
just gets more and more sunglasses as the season
Yeah,
goes
yeah.
on, and they get darker and darker.
Yeah.
Yeah, I want to see Kimi Antonelli DNF in Monaco and just walk back to his yacht. And just,
That's classy. Let's give a nod to Franco Colapinto if we could. His second race in a row where he's got his best ever finish in Formula One.
And where he's actually handily, like, admittedly some of it came down to qualifying and things like that, but has confidently kind of outperformed Gasly. This was not a case of Gasly getting screwed over by strategy or...
He did get a bit screwed over in Q1 when I think he had a little groundhog incident, like Albon did. But
All the best people have them.
apparently.
But, like, he seemed in control of, like, being the lead Alpine.
He did, yeah.
And he's only one place off P5, which means I get points.
The fact that you got a point for predicting Colapinto P5 is
But
insane.
not Russell P1.
No.
Behave. We've got predictions coming up soon. Callum, firstly, Franco Colapinto. Just where did he come from?
I don't.
Argentina,
Argentina,
but
yeah.
Argentina.
Where did you come from? Where did you Where did you come from, Colapinto? I'm sorry, I had to. It's got
Can
the
we
same
play that
number
on the
of
podium
syllables.
when he gets his first podium, please? No, I was really impressed with him. Yeah, exactly what you said. The fact that it was a pretty fair race between him and Gasly, and he has been outperforming Gasly. We know how strong. I've talked many times on the podcast how strong Gasly is in the Alpine, and the fact that he can get ahead of him, it's really promising for him, and also really promising for Alpine because they look clear favourites now for P5 in the championship. They kind of seem to be. A little bit, maybe the Racing Bulls sometimes challenge them. Maybe Williams will get up there come later in the season, but they seem to have kind of set themselves for that position, which is really incredible given where they have been a couple of years ago, where they were right down the grid, and now Mercedes engine, I suppose that's the consequence of the Mercedes engine, really, is that they actually perform well.
I think so, yeah. I mean, it was a P6 for Franco, P8 for Pierre, which is great. They're now on 35 points, which is 14 ahead of Racing Bulls, but still 22 behind Red Bull, because of course they had a good weekend as well. So they're kind of in a no man's land now, which is often the case with P5 in Formula One constructors. They're kind of in top of the midfield, but not quite at the heels of the top 4 teams. Okay, let's move on to our predictions now that we made in the preview episode. It might shock everyone to know that all of us have done okay for this episode,
Especially
I think.
me, that's a surprise. Well, it might be because I didn't actually predict my own predictions, it was someone else.
And also, your random prediction was that Carlos Sainz got points. That's carrying.
Yes.
That
exactly.
did carry you. Callum, do you want to talk us through your sprint winner and top 5, please?
Yes, of course. So sprint winner, I went for Anthony. That was not true. I should have maybe had more faith in Russell, like I have in previous predictions. First was also George Russell, so I got that completely the wrong way around. I said P2 for Kimi Antonelli, so that's a point there. Piastri in P3, obviously he was way off, not accounting for all the blunders that McLaren and Piastri especially had in that race. Max Verstappen in P4, I got another point for that because obviously Verstappen did end up getting the last spot on the podium. And then Lando Norris in P5, unfortunately DNFing in the race, so not much I could have done about that either. So that is 2 points, I think I'm right in saying, for my top 5. But more to come.
More to come, importantly.
Yeah. Importantly.
So you've basically already beaten a lot of your previous totals.
Yes. I know. Even when I have a good weekend, I can't escape my past history of bad predictions.
You've got 2/3. You've added, your point total has already increased by 66%.
Well done. I'll walk everyone through Jasper's sprint and top 5 because he was with us for the preview. Sprint winner was apparently going to be Antonelli, so did not come in. P1, George Russell, no, could have been. P2, Piastri, definitely not. P3, Antonelli, no. P4, Lando Norris, no, again. P5, Charles Leclerc, so that's 1 point from the top 5.
Oh, yeah, because he was P4, not
P4,
P5.
yeah.
Can't remember where anyone finished. I said George Russell would win the sprint. Yay, 3 points! And everybody cheered.
No.
I cheered.
This is a competition, I'm not cheering.
The imaginary audience in my head cheered.
Fair enough. The people at home, comment if you cheered.
P1, Russell. So that was wrong. P2, Antonelli, so I get 1 point for that. And this has proven that my strategy, because I said going into this, I didn't actually think Mercedes would necessarily get a 1-2, but I found it hard to believe that at least one Mercedes wouldn't be in either P1 or P2, and so I was trying to guarantee myself a point. So I have done that. I haven't met the minimum threshold I set, but Piastri P3, no. Norris P4, no. And then my greatest prediction of all time, Franco Colapinto P5, which I get 1 point for because he's
That
in
is-
P6.
that is
and
incredible.
you all laughed. You laughed.
We did laugh.
Who would have actually predicted that though?
Because that is an insane call.
Yeah.
Would you have laughed at me more if I said Hadjar P5? Because that
No.
was what
No.
actually happened.
Obviously not. Frank, going for Colapinto P5 was a bold call, and it paid off for you. And I'm very happy, and I'm not at all bitter that you've managed to pull that out of nowhere.
I'm sure you've done fine, don't worry.
I've done fine. Specifically, I went for George Russell as the sprint winner, which was correct. Antonelli as the race winner, which was also correct. Got those two the right way around this time. Norris P2, sadly not. George Russell P3, also no. Piastri P4, no. Charles Leclerc P5, which is 1 point. So that's 7 from my top 5. Let's circle back around. Callum, your DNF and random, please.
So my DNF was Esteban Ocon. That did not happen. He did finish the race. But then my wildcard prediction was Sainz top 10. And so that gets me, 3 points?
It does.
Excellent.
And
So
you
that means...
got P9 actually.
Yes.
So Williams get 2 points. More importantly than Callum's points, Williams gets
Success
points.
for Williams and myself. So that is a grand total of 5 points, which, given my past history on this podcast,
that's a
is actually
100
an incredible
That is a
score.
166% increase on your existing total.
I'll take it.
You've scored more points than Williams did on a weekend for once. So
For once. No, it's only up from here. The comeback's on.
Oh wait, sorry, I just got to reiterate Callum one more time. With their terrible performance this weekend, McLaren have once again dropped below Aston Martin in terms of most laps completed.
Seriously?
Yeah.
Look, as long as it's not reflected in... Wait, where are they in the championship at the moment?
They're doing fine in the
They're
championship.
third. Look, they'll overtake Ferrari soon, okay? It's all... Just trust the process.
40 points behind. I'm not sure about that.
Yeah, okay.
Ferrari are turning up in Monaco, Callum, you know that.
Yeah.
McLaren are not going to be on the podium, I'm afraid.
And Ferrari don't even have 2 pit stops to mess up their strategy again.
I'm calling now McLaren are going to get P2 in the championship.
You know what, I agree.
Yeah, I agree as well. But until
It's just fun to race.
until they do.
Yes.
I'm happy that Sainz got P9 because it continues his trend of finishing either
P9
P9
or P50.
when he finishes the race, of course. So thank you very much, Carlos, for that. Let's go to Jasper's DNF and random prediction now, which were a DNF for Max Verstappen, which did not happen. He had his best weekend of the year, of course, and his random prediction, very impressive. Well, we took this down from 5, but there will be 4 different tyre compounds used in the race, and there were the inters and all 3
I'm
dry
so gutted
compounds.
that I didn't... that I actually mentioned to drop it down to 4.
No, you know what? I think this is random, more random than yours. So I think
Yeah.
this definitely was acceptable.
Certainly the 4
Congrats,
wet
Jasper.
tyres, we should have... Like, if that happened, we would have awarded him,
We
like,
would
10
have given-
points or
Yeah,
something. so-
I mean, I think you said we would just award you the predictions
Yeah,
championship
yeah.
on your one appearance on the preview. Lucy, your DNF from random.
Yeah, this is bad for me. I said that Leclerc would DNF. He didn't. He was just there. I think he might have. Maybe you would have preferred it if he DNF'd because then it didn't get afternoon off. And random, we have at least 4 different race leaders. That did not happen. We had 3 different race leaders in the first 10 laps. And then Kimi Antonelli refused to DNF and let Lewis Hamilton lead the race. So that really screwed me over.
How selfish! You didn't even let him lead for a lap.
Exactly. Come on, you could have had a bit of a slow pit stop.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
Get a grip.
Get a grip, Kimmy. That's basically what we said for the whole of
Because
this
he
episode.
definitely is listening to the podcast.
We've had a combination of get a grip emotionally and get some grip as in stop locking up.
You get a
Very
grip
good.
in multiple ways, yeah.
There's layers to this metaphor.
DNF Lance Stroll was who I chose. He has a weird race. Did you hear some of his radio calls? He was like, I hope the coffee's good on the pit wall. And he said he's completing the race for the mechanics and Lawrence, which I thought was very interesting.
I also love the fact that he called him Lawrence instead of Dad.
Yeah, he didn't call him Dad, which, it's...
I can't tell what would have been funnier.
I think it's fair enough for him not to accept that he's his dad, like, on the radio that's broadcasted internationally, and not accept that, like, he is a product of nepotism,
Yeah.
and his presence is only guaranteed.
I just think,
because of
like,
his
the
father.
engineers, like, they just didn't really... Would they really care too much about him finishing the race?
They'd
Or not?
probably be like-
They probably just
They'd
wanted to go
probably-
home.
They
Didn't
probably,
have
would,
to.
they probably would have preferred if he'd just retired because they probably spent the whole time being like, oh my god.
Yeah, they
if
can
he
save the car.
If he crashes out because he's been too stubborn to DNF.
Actually, he crashed out after saying that. I'm doing this for you engineers. Meanwhile, they got to spend like the next 2 days repairing his car.
That would be peak Lance Stroll.
Yeah. Oh,
And
look.
he got that 4 times.
And I would have got my points, which I didn't. So moving on to my random prediction, which was that one driver from the top 3 teams, because it was changed from top 4, because you're all spiteful, one driver from the top 3 teams has a pit stop slower than 4 seconds.
Which I think did happen.
Which,
because
lo
didn't
and behold,
Piastri need to change
happened
his front wing?
Twice, when
Yeah.
Piastri changed his front wing after colliding with Albon, and and had to serve his penalty for colliding with Albon, which was much longer than 4 seconds as well. So that brings my total up to 10 points,
That's ridiculous.
which is the most out of anyone for this
You've
week.
you've doubled your tally because you were on 10 before this week.
Was I?
Or were you on 13?
Oh, I was. You're right. I was on 10 before this week. I'll walk you through the points in a sec. Callum and Lucy are tied on 5 points for this week. And
That's
Jasper
not that bad.
Jasper got 4, so not too far behind
Jasper got
either.
4, but I think got kind of the moral victory with that random prediction.
Yeah, definitely moral
Yes,
victory. Which brings our totals. My total is up to 20 points. Lucy, you're up to 12, and Callum is a little bit behind on 8.
Oh, that's fine.
I have to add as well that on the average point totals, the guests are still ahead of you. I'm afraid.
Oh, I'm still ahead, yeah.
You are ahead by
By how much?
a third of a point.
Oh, okay,
Lucy
right.
is ahead.
No, of the guests. I'm ahead
Yeah.
by a point of Callum.
Oh,
Yeah, but of the guests.
of the guests,
Yeah.
you're a third of a point.
I'll take it. I'll take it.
And I'm on 5.
Listen, Nicky
compared to your
Lauda won a
3.
championship by half a point. I will take my.
I mean,
second
if you're ahead, you're ahead. You
I'm
know?
ahead. If I'm
It doesn't
ahead, I'm ahead.
matter by how much. So, congratulations, I guess.
I say when I'm not even leading,
so
I'm in second
insincere.
place.
It was a bit. But then that wraps up our Canadian Grand Prix review. One thing that we haven't mentioned, but I'd like to add, was that the Perez and Lawson beef was very much revived this weekend. I don't know if you guys saw this in the sprint, because it wasn't broadcasted, but Perez very much forced Lawson off the track at the final chicane. And
No love lost there.
yeah, and,
It's really
and
funny.
there was a penalty coming Perez's way, and Lawson said on the radio, "I have to race him like he's a kid," which I thought was very funny, and it's very entertaining, to say
It's
the
going to
least.
be like Perez, because I'm assuming Perez will retire before Lawson. It's going to be like Perez's retirement dinner, and Lawson's going to trip him over.
Or put
Nah,
lots of salt in his drink.
Yeah.
No, Perez is going to be racing until he's like 50. I'm calling it.
Do you think?
I think so.
Okay, we'll see. We'll see if anyone wants him around that long.
Do you want to make that your prediction for next week?
And that'll be that'll be my like lifelong prediction for the podcast if that happens.
We're
then.
doing a reunion podcast in 10 years.
That'd be sick.
And we're going to bring you up on that. And still slate you
Us
for your
like-
predictions in a
us
decade.
Like 10 years' time when we.
Yeah, us in 10 years. That's it.
Maybe Williams will have a championship by then.
Okay, I don't know. Okay, we're talking about wild predictions, not impossible predictions. Come on.
Wow. They've won championships before. It's not my fault. It was 29 years ago.
Oh, it's the 30th anniversary next year. That's so
And it's
sad.
the 50th anniversary of Williams being founded next year.
Is it?
Yeah.
Okay, it's a big year for Williams then, really, isn't
Yeah.
it?
So Williams were only good in their first 20 years.
Listen.
Pretty much.
Listen,
Yeah.
when
Yeah,
Kimi
that's
Antonelli is really good in his second year of the sport, everyone goes, wow, he's a prodigy. And then when Williams peak early, everyone goes, they're washed.
I don't know if it works the same.
Yeah, if they could have continued their upward trend from last season, then maybe we'd be
Yeah,
saying
yeah.
some different things, but they
Exactly.
haven't.
Yeah. Because it was a wild prediction for one of them to finish top 10, which kind of says everything about their season.
It's true.
I'm afraid. Sorry, this is just turning into lots of rage bait.
Yeah.
Let's end the episode there, I think.
Because of video exhaustion.
It was, yeah. I brought up the one thing that I wanted to finish on, which is the satisfaction of Perez-Lawson beef. So thank you, everyone, for listening to this episode. Thank you to Lucy, Callum, and Alex for joining me on it as well. Very fun, as always. And we'll be back next week because we're finally getting a consistent stream of Formula One races, and it's really exciting. So we will see you for the Monaco preview, which is coming next week. Goodbye.